The moment the millionaire leaned forward to sign, the maid's voice echoed through the room. "Don't sign." The secret she revealed about his wife made his heart stop. It was one of those mornings that looked perfect on the outside. The sun was coming through the windows just right. Everything in the room was still, clean and expensive looking. That dining room wasn't made for anything dramatic. It was made for peaceful breakfasts, maybe quiet Sunday coffee. But this wasn't going to be one of those mornings. Mark Whitman, 39, sat at the head of the long glass table. He looked sharp in that quiet, casual way rich men sometimes do without trying too hard. His dark blue shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, and his watch probably cost more than most people's cars. He wasn't flashy, just solid, steady. You could tell by the way he sat, shoulders relaxed, calm face, pen in hand. There was no sign that anything was wrong. Not yet. Next to him sat Chloe, 28 years old, his wife of almost 4 years. She looked like someone who always knew how to sit just right. Hair pulled back into a low bun, soft makeup, one of those silky beige blouses that didn't wrinkle no matter how you moved. She had her hand resting lightly on his forearm, like she owned that moment, like everything was under control. On the table between them was a contract, thick packet, several pages. The kind of document people usually don't read all the way through because they trust the person who hands it to them. And that's exactly what Mark was doing. Trusting. No doubts. Not even a sliver. "This is it?" he asked, looking down, his voice casual. Chloe nodded. "Just sign the last page. Everything else is already in order. Jason took care of it." Mark smiled. "That lawyer friend of yours?" "Mm-hmm," she said, smiling right back, but a little tighter. "He's good at what he does. Fast too." There was something strange in the way she said it. Not that Mark noticed. He didn't think that way. He wasn't the paranoid type. Especially not with her. Chloe was his person. Or at least she had been for a while now. Then, right when he reached for the pen, it happened. The door slammed open. Like, really slammed. Not some soft knock, not someone politely walking in. It was loud and sudden, like something out of a movie. The kind of moment where time slows down and everything goes quiet, even though there's chaos happening right in front of you. Emily stood there in the doorway. She was shaking. Not in a dramatic, fake way, but the real kind, where your hands won't stop moving and you can't catch your breath. 33 years old, in a simple dark uniform with her name stitched on the chest. Nothing about her screamed drama, not usually. She was the quiet one, the one who kept her head down, worked hard, got in and out of rooms without anyone noticing. But right now, there was no ignoring her. "Do not sign that!" she yelled, her voice cracking halfway through, like it took everything in her to say it. But she had to. Her face was flushed, her eyes wide and wet, and she looked completely out of place in that perfect room. Mark froze, pen still in hand. He looked up like someone had just thrown cold water in his face. "What the hell?" Chloe muttered, eyes wide but trying to keep her expression calm. Her whole body tensed, like she was preparing for something and wasn't sure how bad it was going to get. Emily stepped forward. Her arms were tight at her sides, fists clenched. Her breathing was all over the place, but she kept going. "Don't sign that paper," she said again, quieter but just as desperate. "Please, Mr. Whitman, you don't know what it is. You think you do, but you don't." Chloe stood up slowly. The chair screeched against the floor. She moved to stand between them like she was shielding Mark from something. "What's going on here?" Mark asked, standing now too, looking from Chloe to Emily and back. "Emily, what are you talking about?" "I heard her," Emily said, pointing at Chloe, her hand trembling. 3 days ago, she was on the phone, walking around the guest room. The door was open. I was collecting laundry. She didn't see me. She said once you signed it, the money would be gone. She said you'd be broke, and then she'd be with someone else. A man. She called him Jason. I didn't want to say anything, I swear. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't let you sign that without knowing. Chloe didn't yell. She didn't panic. She stepped forward slowly and let out a light fake laugh. "Oh my God," she said, shaking her head. "You're serious. This is really happening." Mark didn't say anything. "I knew this might happen," Chloe continued. She turned to Mark, her tone changing to something softer. "I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to make things awkward around the house, but she's had this weird crush on you for a while. I've noticed it. The looks, the way she acts when you're around. I thought she was harmless, honestly. But this is not okay." Emily's face twisted in shock. That's not true. What? That's not what this is. I don't want anything from you, Mr. Whitman. I just don't want you to get hurt. Mark rubbed his eyes like his head was starting to pound. Emily, you're accusing my wife of… what exactly? Lying to you. Planning this whole thing with someone else. She said you'd lose everything if you signed. She was laughing about it. She said you wouldn't see it coming. Chloe let out a soft sigh. This is ridiculous. Mark, please. Let's end this now. Fire her. We can't have someone this unstable in the house. Mark looked at Emily for a long time. Something in his face shifted just slightly. He didn't yell. He didn't explode. He just said the words so plainly that it hit even harder. You're done here, Emily. Leave. Emily didn't move at first. She just stared at him. You don't believe me. I believe my wife, he said. And that was it. Chloe placed a hand on his back like she was comforting him. She was still smiling, but now it was different. Controlled, like she had won something. Emily's eyes filled up. She turned without another word and walked out of the room. You could almost hear her heart breaking with each step. No one followed her. No one tried to stop her. Just the sound of the door closing behind her. Mark sat back down. Chloe was right beside him again in an instant. Let's just move past that, she whispered. She's gone. Let's not let this ruin our day. Mark nodded slowly, but his eyes didn't go back to the contract. Not yet, because something in the room had shifted. Even if he didn't want to admit it yet, something felt off now. Cold, like the sun shining through the windows didn't feel as warm anymore. The house felt different the second Emily left. Not louder, not quieter, just heavier. Like something had cracked in the walls and now everyone was pretending they didn't hear it. Chloe didn't waste a second. She leaned into Mark, one hand sliding across his shoulder in that soft, practiced way like she was keeping him grounded. Her voice went calm again, sweet even, like none of that just happened. I'm so sorry, baby, she said, her eyes locking on his. I should have told you earlier. I thought I could handle it, but clearly, I was wrong. Mark leaned back in his chair, staring straight ahead at the paper still sitting on the table. His hand hadn't reached for the pen again. Not yet. Chloe gave him a little squeeze like she was trying to get him to look at her. I knew something was off with her, I just didn't think she'd go that far. He finally looked at her. Not hard, not angry, just kind of blank. What do you mean something was off? She pulled back slightly, just enough to give him room to breathe, but still close enough to feel like she had his attention. Okay. So there were moments, weird little things, like she'd stare at you when you weren't looking, or find reasons to be in the same room as you, especially when I wasn't around. At first I brushed it off. I didn't want to make assumptions, but then she started asking me personal stuff, about us, about our schedule, and then yesterday I caught her standing right outside our bedroom. She said she was dusting, but she didn't have anything with her. It was just strange. Mark looked down at the contract again. His fingers tapped on the table once, then stopped. She said your voice was on the phone, that you said I'd lose everything if I signed. And Chloe's face didn't twitch, not even a little. If she was faking calm, she was doing a damn good job. Mark, come on. You've known me for how long? Do you really think I'd ever do something like that to you? He didn't answer. She reached for his hand. She's making it up. It's sick, but it happens. People get jealous, especially when they feel small in someone else's house. I mean, look at this place. Look at our life. Can you blame her for wishing she had what we have? He pulled his hand away, not in anger, more like he didn't want to be touched right then. She noticed. Her jaw tightened just a little. She said a name. Jason. Chloe blinked once. Jason's the lawyer. I told you that. She said it like you were with him. Okay, this is getting crazy, she said, her tone sharpening. You seriously think I'm sleeping with our lawyer? Jesus, Mark. I didn't say that. No, but you're thinking it. Don't lie. She stood up and started pacing, rubbing her hands together like she was trying to keep from yelling. This is exactly what she wanted. She couldn't have you, so now she wants to ruin what we have. Mark didn't say anything. He leaned back in his chair and just watched her, like he wasn't sure what to believe yet, like he was seeing her through a new lens for the first time and trying to figure out what was real. You're quiet, she said, stopping in front of him. That's not like you. I'm thinking. Thinking about what? She asked, folding her arms. Whether your wife's cheating on you with your lawyer or your housekeeper's having a breakdown? He gave a tiny shrug. I don't know. The silence after that was thick. You could almost feel it crawling up the walls. I love you, she said softly. I'm not perfect, okay? I'm not always the easiest person, but I've never lied to you. Not about something like this, and definitely not about money. Mark stood up slowly and walked to the window. He looked out over the garden, but he wasn't seeing it. His mind was somewhere else completely. He ran a hand through his hair. I just don't get it, he said, his voice low. Why would she make this up now? Why today? Chloe took a deep breath. Because she knew today was important. Because she couldn't stand the idea of us growing stronger. And maybe she thought if she blew it all up, you'd run to her. People do crazy things when they feel invisible. He turned back to her. So what are you saying? She's in love with me? I think she's obsessed, Chloe said, not missing a beat. And maybe it's not even about love. Maybe it's about control, about power. I don't know. But whatever it is, she's dangerous. And she can't stay here. She's already gone. Good. Chloe came over and wrapped her arms around him from behind. Let's forget this. Let's finish signing and move on with our day. Please. He didn't respond. He let her hold him, but his eyes weren't focused. His body didn't relax. Something was off, and even if he didn't want to say it out loud, he felt it. That night, Chloe stayed unusually close to him, touching him more, talking softer, offering to make dinner, even though the house staff usually handled that. Mark tried to act normal, but his mind was chewing on something it couldn't quite swallow. Later after dinner, when he went into his office to make a few calls, Chloe disappeared into the guest bathroom with her phone. She didn't lock the door, but she closed it all the way. She spoke in a whisper, pressed up close to the sink. He didn't sign, she said quickly. Pause. Yes, I'm working on it. Emily showed up. It was a mess, but I handled it. Another pause. Her voice dropped even lower. No, he doesn't suspect you. I said you were the lawyer. He bought it. She pressed the speaker tighter to her face. No, I don't think he believes her, but he's quiet. It's weird. She listened for a while, nodded. Okay. Tomorrow then. I'll try again. Just then, a sound in the hallway made her flinch. She ended the call fast, splashed water on her face, and walked out like nothing happened. But she didn't know that someone else had heard just enough, and that person wasn't Mark. Chloe waited until the house felt still again. She knew Mark was still awake, but she also knew him well enough to guess he'd be in his office with his headphones on. That was his little nighttime routine when he was upset or had too much on his mind. He'd sit back, pretend to do work, and just zone out to music or some finance podcast while he stared at the same open file for 2 hours. That gave her a window. She slipped into the downstairs bathroom with her phone already in her hand. The light was dim, which was fine. She didn't need to see herself. She just needed to think straight. The door clicked shut behind her. She stood by the sink and stared at the blank screen for a second, thumb hovering. Then she hit call. It rang once, then twice. Finally, a man's voice answered on the third ring. What the hell happened? She didn't even say hi. Her voice was sharp, low, and fast. Emily showed up, screamed in the middle of the damn dining room, said not to let him sign, said she overheard us. The man's voice on the other end didn't respond right away. He was quiet but not calm. You could feel the tension through the phone. You told me she wouldn't be a problem, he finally said. She wasn't. She's a housekeeper. I didn't think she'd say anything, let alone show up like that. Chloe started pacing inside the little bathroom, chewing on her thumb. Her nerves were buzzing, not because she was afraid of getting caught, not exactly, but because she hated losing control. She hated people messing with her timing. She's gone, though, she added. Mark fired her on the spot. I spun it like she's obsessed with him. The man on the phone let out a breath. Good. You're lucky he didn't listen to her. He didn't, Chloe said quickly. He didn't say it, but I could tell. He just shut down. He doesn't want to deal with anything emotional. He goes cold. Still, the man said, you should have had him sign already. This is dragging. Do you think I don't know that? She snapped, keeping her voice down. He's more careful than I thought. I had the contract in front of him. Twice. And both times, something interrupted. The man stayed quiet for a few seconds. Chloe closed her eyes, leaning against the sink, trying to breathe slowly. We need him to sign, he said finally. We've waited long enough. The assets move, and once that's done, it's all clean. He's got no clue how much is about to shift. He won't read the fine print, Chloe said. He never does, he trusts me. That's not the same as stupid, the man replied. He's not an idiot, Chloe. You get one more shot at this, maybe 2 tops. If he gets suspicious, we're done. Chloe opened her eyes and stared at herself in the mirror. Her face was flawless, even in low light. but her expression was sharp now. Mean. Not soft like the one she gave Mark. He's not suspicious. Not really. He's just rattled. She caught him off guard. You better be sure, the man warned. If this goes sideways, I'm not taking the fall. You won't have to, Chloe said coldly. I know what I'm doing. There was a pause on the line. Then the man said, get him to sign tomorrow. I will. I mean it, Chloe. She rolled her eyes. Relax, Jason. I'm handling it. You better be. Then he hung up. Chloe stood there for a moment, staring at her screen. Then she slowly put the phone down on the edge of the sink and stared at herself again. She looked perfect. No stress lines, no sweat, nothing out of place. But inside her stomach was tight. She didn't like the way Jason had talked to her. He had this way of making everything sound like her fault. She didn't like being bossed around. Not by him. Not by anyone. She turned the faucet on, splashed some water on her face, and smoothed her hair back before walking out. What she didn't realize was that just down the hall, behind the swinging door that led to the kitchen, someone had stopped mid-step when they heard her voice. Not the words, just the sound of her talking. Marta, the cook, late 50s, hard-working, kept to herself. She had seen all kinds of rich people drama over the years and knew when something smelled wrong. She'd been walking back from the laundry with a fresh stack of folded towels when she heard Chloe's voice echo out of the bathroom. The tone didn't match the sweet fake personality Chloe wore around Mark. This voice was cold, businesslike, like she was talking to someone she trusted more than her own husband. Marta stood there, towels pressed against her chest, listening with her eyes slightly squinted. She couldn't make out the full words, but she caught the name Jason. She caught the words sign and money and assets. And she definitely caught the way Chloe walked out of that bathroom like nothing had happened. That didn't sit right with her. Marta didn't say anything right away. Not to Mark, not to anyone. She just watched and waited. She didn't want to make noise unless she was sure, but she also wasn't the type to stand by if someone was being taken advantage of. Back upstairs, Chloe slipped into bed beside Mark, curling up close like nothing had happened. She pressed her cheek against his shoulder, ran her fingers along his chest, and whispered, I'm sorry about today. Mark didn't say much, just nodded. His mind was still spinning. He didn't ask about the contract again that night, and she didn't push it. But the next morning, Chloe was already preparing to try again. Coffee made, soft music playing, hair curled just right. She set the papers back out on the table and waited for him to come downstairs. This time she was going to make sure nothing interrupted. At least that was the plan. The next morning felt off before the sun even came all the way up. The house was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. More like a something's about to drop kind of quiet. That kind of silence you feel in your chest, even when no one's saying anything yet. Emily sat at the edge of her twin bed, back at her sister's apartment, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Her face was pale. She hadn't slept much, kept going over it again and again. That moment in the dining room when she spoke up, the look on Mark's face, the way Chloe stayed so calm, like she had rehearsed it all in her head a dozen times. Emily felt sick thinking about it, not because she got fired. That part didn't even sting as much as she thought it would. What killed her was knowing she told the truth and still wasn't believed. That helpless feeling like shouting into a void. Watching someone walk right into a trap you know is there, but being too powerless to stop it. Her sister Julia tried to comfort her the night before, made tea, offered to watch movies, even ordered pizza, but Emily barely touched a slice. She'd been the one holding in a secret for days, hoping it would disappear, and now everything had exploded and she still couldn't do anything. Her phone buzzed. A message. Not from Mark. She knew better than to hope. It was from Marta. Hey, can we talk? I think I heard something. Emily stared at it for a few seconds. She didn't want to get her hopes up, but she called her right away anyway. Marta answered after one ring. She was already outside the gate of Julia's apartment building, holding a brown grocery bag in one arm like she just happened to be running errands. They sat on the front bench just past the flower beds, the morning air still cool. Marta looked like she hadn't slept much either. I don't know everything, Marta started, looking over her shoulder, but I know when something's not right. Emily leaned in. You heard her, didn't you? I heard enough, Marta said. Not clear words, not all of it, but she was in the downstairs bathroom talking low on the phone. I was walking past. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. What did she say? She said someone's name, Jason, and she said something about money, assets, something like he didn't sign and I'm working on it. Marta looked her in the eye. It didn't sound like someone protecting their husband. Emily felt something inside her shift, like her gut had finally been backed up by someone else's eyes and ears. She lied to his face, Emily said, and he didn't even flinch. She's good at it, Marta added. Too good. She's not just faking kindness. She's managing it, every step, like she's used to keeping her tracks covered. Emily looked away, chewing on her thumb for a second. I need proof. Something real. Something he can't deny. Marta looked thoughtful for a moment. Didn't she have that call in the guest room? Yeah. It was the same day I came in with the laundry. She was pacing, phone to her ear. Didn't even care the door was open. There's a speaker in that room, Marta said, thinking out loud. Part of the house system. The voice control thing. If she said something loud enough near it, there might be a recording. Emily blinked. You think it saved it? Maybe. Those systems have backups, automatic ones. If the mic was active, even by accident, it might have caught something. They didn't waste another minute. Marta agreed to let Emily back in after hours. The cleaning crew wouldn't be around, and Chloe always slept with earplugs. If Mark was in his own world, maybe they could sneak in and check. Marta still had keys. Emily still had nerves of steel, even if they were buried under everything she was feeling. That night, they snuck into the house like two people who had no business being there. Emily's heart was pounding the whole time. She'd never broken a rule this big in her life, not even as a kid. But something about knowing the truth and not being able to prove it had pushed her over the edge. The guest room was just like she remembered. Clean, cold, almost too perfect. Marta flipped on the lamp by the nightstand and whispered, I think the speaker's here. Emily knelt beside the little voice assistant box. It had a blue light ring that flickered when touched. She pressed and held it the way Marta told her. History, she said softly. Voice history. The device blinked. Then a robotic voice replied, Recent audio clips. It started playing back quiet moments, background music, random conversations. Then one clip came on that made both women freeze. It was Chloe's voice. Once he signs it, it's done. All of it transfers. He won't know what hit him. We'll be out before he even realizes what happened. Silence. Then the voice again. No, I'm not worried. He trusts me. He doesn't read anything. He signs whatever I hand him. Emily couldn't breathe. Marta reached for her shoulder, gently steadying her. I told you, Emily whispered, eyes wide. They downloaded the audio straight to Emily's phone. Marta had brought a USB just in case too. They made backups. 2, then 3. Emily didn't know whether to cry or scream. All she knew was she had it now. She finally had it. On the way out, they were careful, double-checking doors, not touching anything extra. As they passed the dining room, Emily paused for a second. That was where it all happened, where she'd stood in front of them, shaking, heart racing, telling the truth, and got tossed aside like she was nothing. Not anymore. She left that house feeling something she hadn't felt since this started. Fire. She wasn't sure what Mark would do once he heard the truth. She didn't know if it would break him or snap him awake, but now he'd have no choice but to face it. And Chloe? Chloe had no idea what was coming. The next morning started like most others in that house, but under the surface, things were already shifting. Mark came downstairs wearing his usual black joggers and a plain t-shirt, holding his phone in one hand, rubbing the back of his neck with the other. You could tell he didn't sleep much. His eyes had that dull look, like his brain hadn't shut off all night. The smell of coffee was strong in the air. Chloe was already in the kitchen, looking like a perfect Pinterest wife. Hair done, makeup light but flawless. Wearing that soft blue cardigan she knew he liked. She was slicing strawberries into a white ceramic bowl, like she was hosting brunch for the governor. The contract sat on the table again, casually placed next to a clean black pen, like it had always been there, like yesterday never even happened. Morning, baby, she said sweetly, looking up with a warm smile. He gave a half smile back. Morning. She watched him walk over to the fridge, open it, stare inside for a few seconds, then close it without grabbing anything. His moves were slower than usual, like something was weighing him down. Everything okay? She asked. Mark sat down at the table, picking up his phone again and pretending to scroll. Yeah, just tired. Chloe walked over with the bowl of fruit and set it down in front of him. You were up late. He nodded, still looking at the screen. Yeah. She waited a beat. Then she pulled out the chair next to him and sat. Her hand slid onto his forearm. I know the last couple days have been weird. I hate that we've had this stress in the house. I just want to get back to normal. He looked up at her for a second. Something about her expression was too perfect, too ready, like she was following a script. "You really think she made it all up?" he asked. Chloe tilted her head slightly, her voice calm. "Yes, absolutely. You saw how upset she was," she snapped. "Mark, that kind of jealousy doesn't come from nowhere. She had something twisted in her head and it just broke." He studied her face. "She mentioned the name Jason." Chloe didn't blink. "He's the lawyer. I already told you that. Are you sure there's nothing else between you and him?" She gave a short laugh. "Seriously? He's married with 3 kids. We barely talk outside of contracts. Do you want me to pull up our emails? They're all about the paperwork." Mark didn't answer right away. He tapped his phone on the table a couple times, then glanced at the contract. "I'll read through it today," he said quietly, "just to be sure I understand everything." Chloe's smile flickered for half a second. It was fast, but it happened. "Of course," she said, regaining it. "Take your time." He nodded and stood up, taking his coffee with him. "I'm going to work in the office." Chloe waited until he was out of the room before she let her face fall, just a little. Upstairs, Mark sat at his desk, scrolling through emails, trying to find the original thread Chloe had forwarded from Jason. He found it, but it didn't sit right. Something about the language in the message was off, too vague. The sender's email address wasn't a company name, it was a Gmail account. No signature, no law firm branding. He opened another tab and looked up the name Jason Franklin, attorney, Los Angeles. A few results came up, but none of them matched the email address or the face he remembered from Chloe's photos on her phone. That's when something in his chest tightened. He opened Chloe's Instagram. She wasn't very active on it, but he remembered seeing a photo a few months back of her and a guy at a restaurant. She'd captioned it something innocent, like business brunch vibes with a coffee emoji. At the time, he hadn't thought anything of it. He scrolled until he found it. There it was. Chloe, smiling. The guy next to her wasn't wearing a suit, didn't look like a lawyer. He looked casual, relaxed, like someone too comfortable. Mark clicked the guy's profile. It was private, but his profile picture was the same guy. Jason. Not some fancy law firm guy. Just Jason. Mark leaned back in his chair. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No name. Just a message. "Don't trust her. She's lying. Please just listen to the recording before it's too late." He froze. Then the next message came through. A link. He hesitated, thumb hovering over it. His mind raced. This could be spam, or worse. But part of him already knew who it was from, and part of him knew he was going to click it. He tapped the link. An audio file opened. He pressed play. It started with static, then a quiet background hum, then her voice. "Chloe. Once he signs it, it's done. All of it transfers. He won't know what hit him. We'll be out before he even realizes what happened." Mark's jaw clenched. He couldn't move. "No, I'm not worried. He trusts me. He doesn't read anything. He signs whatever I hand him." His thumb slipped off the phone. The device dropped onto the desk. He sat there, silent, hands in his lap, staring at the wall. His whole chest felt like it was closing in. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the fact that even now part of him still wanted to be wrong. Still hoped it was fake. Still hoped there was some twisted explanation that would make all of this disappear. But he knew Chloe's voice. He knew the tone she used when she was being real. And that voice on the recording was real. He didn't play it again. He didn't respond to the message. He just sat there, letting the silence settle over him like a weight. Downstairs, Chloe was cleaning up the breakfast plates, humming softly to herself, acting like everything was back to normal. She had no idea that everything was about to fall apart. Mark didn't sleep that night, not even a little. He tried to lay down. He tried closing his eyes, counting backwards, breathing deep, all of it. But his head was full of her voice, not just from the recording, from all the years they'd been together, all the things she'd said to him, promises, soft whispers, "I love yous," that now felt like tricks. Every time he blinked, he could see Chloe's face, smiling like everything was okay while she planned to rip everything out from under him. At 4:17 in the morning, he gave up. He got out of bed quietly and grabbed his phone from the charger. Chloe was asleep beside him, breathing slow, turned away. Even now, she looked peaceful. It made his stomach turn. He slipped out into the hallway, down to his office, shut the door gently, and sat at his desk. For a few seconds, he just stared at the wall. Then he opened his contacts and typed in a name he hadn't searched in years. Olivia Bennett. The last time he talked to her, it ended weird, not angry. Just one of those quiet, messy endings where two people drift without ever really saying why. Olivia had been someone important once, before Chloe, long before all of this. She was the only person who had ever challenged him, who saw through the fake smiles and polite dinners. When they were together, they'd argue, push each other, but there was always respect under it. She wasn't soft, she wasn't easy, but she was sharp. Too sharp, maybe. He found her number. It was still saved. He stared at it, thumb shaking slightly, then pressed call. It rang. Once. Twice. Then, a sleepy voice picked up. "Mark?" He froze. "Yeah," he said. "Sorry it's late." Olivia didn't ask why he was calling. She just said, "You okay?" He almost laughed. He hadn't been asked that in a while. "No," he said. "Not really." By the time they met the next day, Olivia already knew something was wrong. They met in the back corner of a quiet coffee shop downtown. It was the kind of place that smelled like old books and strong espresso, and Mark used to hate it. Olivia loved it. She said it reminded her that not everything had to be shiny and new to be worth something. She was already at the table when he walked in. Long coat, sunglasses on the table, hands wrapped around a black coffee like she'd been up since sunrise. She stood when she saw him, gave a half smile, and hugged him once, quick but firm. No words at first. Just two people who hadn't seen each other in years suddenly sitting across from each other like it had only been days. "You look good," she said, eyeing him. "I don't feel good." She nodded like she expected that. "Chloe?" He leaned back in the chair and exhaled slowly. "She's not who I thought she was." Olivia waited. He told her everything. Not in a dramatic, drawn-out way, just the facts. The contract, the phone call, the recording, all of it. Her face didn't move much. She just sipped her coffee and listened with sharp eyes, nodding once in a while. She didn't interrupt him once. When he finished, she sat back and said, "You want to know if it's real?" He nodded. "Have you checked her background?" He shook his head. "No, I never thought I'd need to." Olivia pulled out her phone. "I'll do it." Mark blinked. "You still do this stuff?" She smirked. "I'm better at it now." He didn't ask what she meant. He just watched as she opened some kind of search app, typed fast, pulled up names, numbers, dates. She looked completely different than Chloe. No fake smile, no playing sweet. Just focused, honest, real. Within minutes, she'd pulled up the name Jason Franklin. Not the one Chloe claimed worked at a law firm. No, this Jason had a different trail. "Your guy has no law license," Olivia said, turning her screen so he could see. "He's never worked for any firm. What he does have is a long list of real estate frauds, fake investment schemes, and 2 sealed cases in Florida." Mark swallowed hard. "And get this," she said, tapping the screen. "He changed his last name 3 times in 10 years. His birth name is Jason Heller." Mark leaned forward, staring at the screen like it would change if he looked long enough. "She's been in contact with him for how long?" Olivia asked. "No idea," he said. "At least a few months. Probably more." Olivia scrolled again. They were tagged together in a post 6 months ago. Mutual friends. No comments, but it's public. She pushed her phone closer to him. There it was. Chloe in sunglasses, standing next to Jason in front of some beach house. No caption, just a heart emoji. Mark sat back. His whole body felt cold. "She's going to drain you, Mark," Olivia said softly. "That contract, that's not just shady, that's criminal. And if your name's on it, you'll be stuck cleaning up the mess after she vanishes." He didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat was tight. His brain was trying to process too much too fast. "You still love her?" Olivia asked quietly. He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally he said, "I don't know what I feel anymore." Olivia nodded, leaned back and crossed her arms. "Well, you're going to need proof. Not just to stop her, to protect yourself. If she pulls anything legal, you need to show she lied, manipulated, and misrepresented everything." Mark rubbed his face with both hands. "What do I even do?" "I'll help," she said. "I'll get what you need." Mark looked up. "Why?" She gave a small shrug. "You're not the only one who hates being lied to." Later that night, Olivia made a few calls. She knew a guy who owed her a favor, someone who worked in private security. She wanted to find out where Jason was, what accounts he used, what phone numbers were linked to him. Chloe might have been careful, but people always slip up somewhere, and she was counting on that. She also had another idea, something riskier, but if it worked, it could flip everything. Back at the house, Chloe poured herself a glass of red wine and sat on the back patio. She stared up at the sky, calm as ever. Mark hadn't asked about the contract again. He hadn't brought up Emily. He was quieter, yes, but she took that as a win. She thought the worst was behind her. She had no idea her past was being dug up one click at a time. And Olivia? Olivia had just gotten started. Mark didn't know what to believe anymore. Every room in the house felt like it was hiding something. The kitchen, full of smiles and small talk. The living room, more fake laughter. Even their bedroom felt strange now. The smell of Chloe's perfume used to calm him. Now it made his chest tighten. He felt like he was walking through someone else's life. Chloe was still playing the same part. Same warm voice, same gentle touches. She brought him coffee without him asking, sat on the edge of his desk while he worked, humming softly, asking how he slept, if he needed anything, what time they should eat. She was trying hard, too hard. He watched her more now. The way she looked at her phone and tilted the screen away when he was near. The way her smile twitched when she thought he wasn't watching. He didn't ask her questions anymore. He just listened. Every word she said, every pause, every excuse. That afternoon, she said she was going to get her nails done. She kissed him on the cheek and said she'd be back in an hour or two. He nodded, didn't say much. As soon as the door closed behind her, he opened his laptop. Olivia had sent him a new email with 2 attachments. One was a high-res photo taken outside a hotel in West Hollywood. Chloe and Jason, close, laughing, not businesslike, definitely not distant. The timestamp, just 11 days ago. The second file was a screenshot from Jason's online payment history. She'd tracked down a list of recent charges from one of his digital wallets. A dinner for 2, a spa reservation, a deposit to a rental property, the same beach house that showed up in Chloe's Instagram photo from months ago. It was right there in black and white. They weren't just planning something, they were living it, preparing for a future without him while pretending everything was fine. Mark stared at the screen for a long time, not angry, just numb, the kind of numb where your body knows something is over, but your heart hasn't caught up yet. He closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the kitchen. The house was too quiet. He leaned on the counter, just breathing. Then, on impulse, he walked over to Chloe's side of the closet and pulled open the drawers. He wasn't looking for anything in particular. He didn't even know what he expected, but something told him to check. In the back of her second drawer, under a pile of soft scarves and folded tanks, he found a slim black folder. Inside, 3 printed copies of the contract. The same contract she kept bringing out like it was no big deal. He flipped through the pages slowly. It wasn't the legal language that got to him. It was the small notes scribbled in her handwriting in the margins. Words like confirm Jason and transfer date. His name was written next to blank lines. Her name was already filled in on most of the documents. He placed the folder back exactly where he found it, closed the drawer, walked out. When Chloe returned, all smiles and fresh pink nails, Mark was sitting outside by the fire pit. He didn't say anything at first, just nodded when she kissed his forehead. She sat beside him and curled up with her legs under her. "How was your day?" she asked. He stared into the fire. "Fine." She leaned against his arm. "I was thinking maybe tomorrow night we do something different. Just you and me. Dinner somewhere private. We haven't really connected lately." He nodded slowly. "Sure." She smiled, clearly pleased with herself. An hour later, after dinner, Chloe was in the shower. Mark walked back into the office, pulled out his phone and scrolled through his text history. That's when he remembered the unknown number that sent him the audio. He clicked it. No name. No photo. He typed one sentence. "Who is this?" A minute passed. Then 3. Then finally the 3 dots popped up. "Someone who still believes in you." He stared at the message. Before he could reply, another one came through. "I have more, but only if you want it." He typed back, fast. "Send it." The next reply took a little longer. "Not through text. Too risky. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. Safe place. I'll send the address." Mark hesitated. His head was spinning, but his gut said yes. He typed back, "I'll be there." He locked his phone and set it down just as Chloe came walking in, wrapped in a white towel, face flushed from the hot water. She smiled at him like she always did, like everything was fine. "You look serious," she said, drying her hair. "Just thinking," he said. "Still about the business stuff?" "Yeah, trying to make sense of the numbers." She walked over, pressed a kiss to the top of his head and walked to the closet. Mark watched her in the mirror, her reflection moving through the room like she didn't have a care in the world. He kept his face calm, but inside something was breaking. The trust was already gone. The part that hurt now was the pretending. The fact that she was still putting on the act even though she knew what she was doing to him. And the worst part? He still wanted to believe her. He still wanted it to be some mistake, some misunderstanding, something he could fix. But the truth had already gotten into his bones. There was no going back. Tomorrow, he was going to meet someone who could confirm everything. And Chloe? She was still playing her part, but her time was running out. Fast. 3 days after Mark got the first recording, Chloe announced she was planning a dinner party. It came out of nowhere. 1 minute she was doing her makeup in the bathroom, and the next she was standing in the hallway calling out over her shoulder like it was no big deal. "Hey, I invited a few people for Friday night, just a small thing." Mark paused mid-step. "People?" "Yeah, just casual. Jason's going to stop by. Marta's making that little shrimp risotto thing you like." Jason. Mark's stomach turned the second she said the name. He hadn't seen Jason face to face yet, not knowingly, but Olivia had sent him pictures. He knew exactly what the guy looked like now. That smug grin, the way he dressed like someone who pretended to be relaxed but clearly had something to prove. Mark said nothing for a few seconds. "Jason's coming here?" he asked, keeping his voice even. Chloe turned slightly and smiled. He wanted to drop off a hard copy of the new version of the contract. "I figured it's easier to just have him come over. We'll keep it friendly." Mark nodded like it was fine, like his heart didn't just start pounding harder. "Sure, sounds good." She walked back into the bedroom. "I'll text Olivia too. Maybe she'll come. Haven't seen her in forever." Mark almost choked. "You're inviting Olivia?" "Yeah," Chloe said casually. "Why not?" Mark forced a straight face. "Sure, why not?" What Chloe didn't know was Olivia and Mark had already met twice. And the second meeting had ended with Olivia saying something that stuck in his head all night. "She's bold, Mark. She thinks she's untouchable. But if we're smart, we can turn this around on her without her even seeing it coming." Friday night came faster than expected. The table was set perfectly. White candles, fresh flowers, too many forks. Marta outdid herself with the food. Chloe looked like she was about to host a talk show. She wore a deep green dress that clung just enough to get attention, but not enough to seem like she was trying too hard. Mark wore a plain black button-up and didn't say much. He played the part, smiled when he had to, poured wine like a good host. But inside, every minute felt like a countdown. Guests trickled in slowly. A neighbor couple, a friend of Chloe's from her old yoga studio. And then, Olivia walked in. Chloe greeted her with that warm, fake hug. "Oh my God, I'm so glad you came." Olivia hugged her back, smiled just right, and said, "Of course, I've been dying to catch up." She made it look easy. No tension, no warning signs. You'd never guess she had enough dirt on Chloe and Jason to blow the whole thing up. Then came the real guest of the hour. Jason walked in at 7:48 p.m., holding a small leather folder under his arm and a bottle of wine in the other. He wore a clean white dress shirt and acted like he owned the room the second he stepped in. Chloe's face lit up in a way that didn't match the just business story she'd sold to Mark. Her body language changed. She leaned in too close, laughed too loud. And Jason? He looked right at Mark and gave the kind of handshake that says, "I'm not afraid of you." Mark didn't blink, just smiled and nodded. "Glad you could make it. Happy to be here," Jason said smoothly. "Heard we've got a big night ahead." Chloe reached for the wine. "Let's open this and sit down." Olivia sat across from Jason and watched him like a scientist watches a new insect. Calm, curious, but ready to squash it if needed. She didn't say much at first. She let the small talk swirl around her. Business deals, weekend plans, travel stories. All meaningless noise. Then, after the second glass of wine, Chloe reached for the folder. "Mark," she said, placing it near his plate. "Jason brought the final draft. We figured you could look at it after dessert." Mark glanced at the folder. "Thanks." Jason leaned back in his chair, casual. "It's clean. Simple. Took out all the extra fluff. Should only take a few minutes to review." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "You're a lawyer, right?" Jason smiled. "Too slick." "Sort of. I help with the paperwork. Nothing too serious." "What firm are you with?" Olivia asked, sipping her wine. "Independent now," he said. "Started my own thing." Mark watched Chloe shift in her seat. She didn't like that line of questioning. Olivia noticed it too. "Must be a lot of pressure," Olivia added. "Handling big deals like this without backup." Jason gave a small shrug. "I've got experience." "What kind of experience?" she asked. "Like corporate law? Family law?" He paused, just half a second too long. "Mostly contract law," he said. Real estate, investments, that kind of stuff. Olivia smiled, but her eyes didn't. Sounds complicated. Jason looked like he wanted to change the subject, so Chloe jumped in. Olivia, how's work? Still traveling so much? A little, Olivia said, still looking at Jason. Mostly staying local now. LA has plenty to keep me busy. Jason reached for his wine. His hand wasn't as steady now. Dinner continued. Everyone laughed at the right times. Dessert came out. Marta served quietly, keeping her eyes down, but she saw everything. She saw the tension in Mark's shoulders, the way Chloe kept touching Jason's arm, the way Olivia didn't stop watching. Then, as everyone stood up to move into the living room, Jason and Chloe hung back near the table. She leaned in and whispered something. He smiled and nodded. Mark watched from across the room, face calm but eyes sharp. Olivia walked up beside him, speaking just low enough that only he could hear. 2 more minutes, she said. I've got him on tape. Mark didn't react, just nodded once. She had hidden a small recorder in her purse which had been resting on the edge of the table all night, right between Jason and Chloe. If they slipped up, it would be on tape. The guests started to say their goodbyes. One by one, they filtered out. Chloe hugged everyone with that same warm smile. Jason stayed until the very end. Mark shook his hand at the door. Good seeing you, man. You too, Jason said, voice still smooth, but there was something behind it now. A little crack in the act. After he left, Chloe closed the door and leaned against it like it had been a long day. That went well, right? Mark nodded. Very well. She smiled and turned off the hallway light. I'm glad Olivia came. She's fun. Mark stared at her for a second longer than he should have. She didn't notice. She didn't know that inside Olivia's purse was the start of the end. She didn't know her secret partner was more careless than she thought. She didn't know the recording device picked up every word of their whispered conversation at the table, and she sure didn't know that the man she thought she was fooling had just seen everything he needed to see. Mark was done doubting. He was ready to move. Olivia didn't go home after the dinner party. She drove 2 blocks away, parked under a street lamp, and sat with her hands tight on the steering wheel. Her purse was on the passenger seat. Inside it, the little recorder was still rolling just in case. The second she opened it and hit stop, her fingers moved fast. She connected it to her laptop, threw on her headphones, and scrubbed through the audio. Most of it was dinner chatter. People talking about movies, someone asking for a wine refill, Marta serving dessert. Then around the 2-hour mark, her eyes caught the waveforms jumping. Whispered voices. 1 male, 1 female. Olivia hit play and leaned in. It was Jason and Chloe. Just breathe, Chloe whispered, her voice low but clear. He doesn't suspect anything. You need to stop fidgeting. I'm not fidgeting, Jason whispered back, sounding tight. I just don't like being in his house. You're fine, she said. He trusts me. All you have to do is act normal and stop drinking so fast. Then Jason said, How long until he signs? A pause. Soon, Chloe said. He's getting there. He's trying to act like he's still in charge. Just give him a little more time. There it was. Clear. No questions left. Olivia didn't say anything out loud. She just clicked save and renamed the file Confession A. The next morning, she sent Mark a message. We need to meet. I've got it. Mark didn't reply with words. He just sent back a thumbs up. They met again in the coffee shop. Same table, same chairs, different tone. Mark looked like he hadn't slept again, but he didn't seem shaken anymore. More like something inside him had clicked into place. She slid her laptop across to him and hit play. He didn't even flinch when he heard Chloe's voice. He didn't stop the clip. He listened to every second. When it ended, he closed the laptop lid gently. That's enough, he said. She's almost finished setting the whole thing up, Olivia said. 1 more move, and you'll be out. You need to flip it. He nodded slowly. I want her to think she won. I want her to get exactly what she wants on paper. Olivia raised an eyebrow. You want to fake the signature? No, Mark said. I'm going to give her a real one. You've lost your mind. I'm serious. Olivia sat back, arms crossed. You want her to take the deal? Walk away thinking she just pulled it off? Yes. But what she signs won't be the same as what she thinks she's handing me. There was a short silence. Then Olivia's expression started to change. Oh, she said, you're going to flip the contract. Mark nodded. Every clause, every detail, every line she thought would trap me is going to point right back at her. You have a lawyer who can do it? My guy in Chicago owes me. I haven't called him in years. He'll do it. Okay, Olivia said. Then we get her to show her hand. A full confession. Words, actions, something visual. Something that can't be denied. Mark looked out the window, then back at her. How? Olivia leaned in. We make her think it's over. That she won. That you signed. That Jason's in the clear. And then we get her to say it out loud. That night, Mark sat on the back deck, staring at the city lights. Chloe came outside with 2 glasses of wine, smiling like they hadn't been faking every conversation for the past week. Here, she said, handing him a glass. Thought we'd toast to finally getting back to normal. Mark clinked his glass against hers and smiled. Actually, I was thinking we take it one step further. Chloe raised an eyebrow, curious. How do you mean? I spoke to the bank this afternoon, he said casually. I'm ready to move the assets. I'm going to sign the contract tomorrow. Chloe almost spilled her wine. She covered it quickly, but not quick enough. Her smile stretched just a little too wide. Really? She said, like it was a casual surprise. That's amazing. I figured it's time, he said. No more waiting. Let's finalize it. She touched his arm. You won't regret it. He smiled, soft and slow, like he used to when he actually believed her. She didn't know that the version of the contract she'd be handing him tomorrow would be a mirrored fake. Identical on the surface, but inside it would strip her of everything. It would expose Jason as a non-authorized signer. It would redirect every transferred asset into a holding company Mark controlled. And it would mark any joint financial decisions between her and Jason as legal fraud. But she didn't know that yet. She just leaned in, kissed his cheek and said, I'm so proud of you. The next day, Olivia met Emily in person for the first time. They sat at a quiet diner near the edge of town. Olivia showed her the audio. Emily's eyes welled up halfway through, but she didn't cry. I knew it, Emily said softly. I just wish I had more than words that day. You did more than enough, Olivia told her. But now we need your help one more time. Emily blinked. Me? Olivia nodded. Chloe still thinks you're out of the picture. She thinks she's in the clear. We need her to let her guard down. Emily listened carefully. The plan was this. After Mark signed, Chloe would call Jason. They'd celebrate. Then she'd meet up with him, either to move things forward or to plan their next step. That meeting needed to be recorded. All of it. That meant they had to plant a bug on Chloe. Not in her bag. On her. Something hidden. Something she wouldn't notice. Emily had an idea. I used to help her pick out outfits, she said. I know her closet inside and out. I know what she wears on those days she wants to look hot but innocent. If she's meeting him to celebrate, I can guess what dress she'll wear. Olivia leaned in. Can you get to it? Emily gave a quiet smile. Leave that part to me. That night, Chloe laid out a short white dress on the bed. Not too fancy, not too basic, a little low in the front. She sprayed perfume on it twice and tucked her hair behind her ear, checking herself in the mirror. Mark was downstairs, pretending to make a phone call. In reality, Olivia was texting him from a parked car down the street. Emily had already been in and out of the house 2 hours earlier. Marta covered for her. The dress now had a tiny audio device sewn into the inside seam, barely thicker than a piece of thread. It was motion-triggered and would activate the second Chloe left the house. At exactly 6:40 p.m., she told Mark she was running out for a quick drink with an old friend. He kissed her goodbye. Have fun. You too, she said with a smile. As soon as she left, Mark walked to his office and sat down. Olivia called him on speaker. Recorder is live, she said. Let's see what she does. They both sat in silence and listened. Mark sat alone in the dark office, phone on speaker, elbows on his desk staring at nothing while Chloe's voice came through the live feed. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. Olivia was silent too, still on the other end of the call, listening with him, breathing slow, probably just as focused as he was. The audio was a little fuzzy at first, catching the sound of a car door shutting, her footsteps on pavement, a faint beep from her locking the car. Then her voice came in clearly. Hey, I'm here, where are you parked? Mark leaned forward. That tone, that playful, almost flirty tone. He hadn't heard her use that voice with him in months. Jason's voice came through next, a little muffled, but close enough. Right around the corner. Black Lexus. Get in. Footsteps. A car door opening. Then a click as it shut. The inside of the car made the sound clearer. Mark heard every breath. Did he sign? Her voice was almost breathless. Yes. This morning. Are you serious? Swear to God. I handed it to him. He didn't ask a single question. Just signed it. Jason let out a laugh. low and satisfied. Holy shot, Chloe. You pulled it off. Told you I would. Mark closed his eyes. His jaw clenched so tight his teeth hurt. His fingers curled into fists on the desk. He stayed quiet. What about the backup documents? She answered too quickly. Already uploaded. It's done. He doesn't even know what we moved. And the bank? Cleared. I handled everything 2 days ago. All that's left is to disappear for a while. Let it all settle, then we come back with clean hands. Jason chuckled again. God, you're good at this. I know. Mark's stomach twisted. His throat was so dry he couldn't swallow. He looked over at the framed wedding photo on his shelf. Chloe in a simple white dress, smiling up at him like she meant it. He'd believed every second of it. Every single lie. You still think he has no clue? Please. She scoffed. If he had even a shred of suspicion, he'd be blowing up my phone right now or snooping through my stuff. He's clueless. And now he's broke. They laughed together. Quiet. Soft. Cruel. I still say we should have done it 6 months ago. We couldn't. His trust fund hadn't matured yet, and I needed the stocks to vest before I pulled the trigger. Timing matters, babe. Jason's voice dropped lower. You know, the best part is, he thinks it's his idea. Signing, moving assets, starting fresh. Like we're building something together. She giggled. He even thanked me after. Like I was doing him a favor. Mark's vision blurred. He grabbed the edge of the desk so hard his knuckles went white. The part that hurt the most wasn't that they tricked him. It was that he had wanted to believe her so badly. He had looked her in the eye and told himself it would all work out. And she had smiled and kissed him and walked out the door to finish wrecking his life. So what now? Jason asked. We wait 2 weeks. Then we make the move. You fly out first, I'll come after, when it's clear. And what about him? I'll say I'm going to see my mom. Pretend I need space. We'll text for a while. Then I'll ghost him. He'll be too embarrassed to chase me. Mark stood up suddenly, the chair sliding back. Olivia's voice came through the speaker for the first time in a while. You okay? He didn't answer right away. He just stood there staring at the desk like he was waiting to feel something else, anger, rage, something sharper. But all he felt was cold, heavy, hollow. Mark, I'm here. You need to get out of that house. Not yet, he said. Not until I close the trap. He walked over to the window, pressed his forehead against the cold glass and stared out at the backyard. Chloe had planted new roses out there a few weeks ago. She'd made a big deal about it, said she wanted them to bloom just in time for summer. He had looked out at those flowers every morning with his coffee, thinking about how peaceful everything seemed, how lucky he was. It was all fake. I'm going to finish this, he said. Then he ended the call. He walked down the hall and into the bedroom. Chloe wasn't home yet, probably still with Jason, maybe sipping overpriced cocktails somewhere, celebrating the fall of the man she used to call hers. He sat on the edge of the bed, grabbed one of the pillows and held it against his chest. His body felt frozen, but his mind was racing. The lies, the acting, the way she had smiled at him that morning, the way she had touched his shoulder, brought him coffee, said she was proud of him. He had loved her, and now he hated himself for it. He stayed in that position until her headlights came up the driveway. Then he stood up, walked to the mirror, straightened his shirt, and practiced a smile. When she walked in the door, he was already standing in the kitchen. She smiled at him like nothing happened. Hey, babe. Hey, he said back, just as calm. How was your night? Good. Caught up with an old friend? Nothing exciting? He smiled wider. Same here. Mark woke up early the next morning before the sun came up. He didn't sleep much, but he wasn't tired. It was like his body had already decided what had to happen and wasn't wasting energy on anything else. Chloe was still sleeping beside him, facing the other way, her breathing slow and steady. She looked peaceful, like she didn't have a single thing in the world to be nervous about. That made it easier. He got up, took a shower, and got dressed quietly. Simple clothes, black tee, jeans, clean sneakers. He didn't want to look like he was going to war. He wanted to look normal, calm, like any other day. He called his lawyer on the way to his office. Not the kind Chloe knew. A man named Craig that he'd worked with years ago during a messy business buyout. Craig didn't ask a lot of questions. He just got things done. By the time Mark pulled into his office building, Craig had already emailed a draft. Mark sat at his desk, opened his laptop, and read every single word. It looked just like Chloe's version. Same formatting, same length, same cover page. But inside, it was flipped. The fine print turned everything upside down. Instead of giving Chloe access, it gave her zero control. Instead of a joint account, It directed all transfers into a frozen trust under Mark's name. Any attempts to move or withdraw funds without his approval would trigger a legal lock and alert the bank's fraud team. Jason's name wasn't anywhere on it, but if someone tried to sign on Chloe's behalf, it would count as forgery under contract law. Mark read it again, then one more time. He added his signature to the final page. Simple, clean, controlled. He stared at it for a moment after he signed. Then he pressed print. The trap was set. That night, he came home right on time. Chloe was in the kitchen, pouring wine, music playing in the background. Jazz, something soft. She was dressed in all black like she was going out after, but trying to play it off as casual. Her lipstick was darker than usual. Her eyes sparkled when she saw him. "Hey, handsome," she said, handing him a glass. "I made us a little something. Felt like we should celebrate." Mark raised his eyebrows. "Celebrate what?" She winked. "You'll see." He took the wine but didn't drink it. They sat down at the table. Dinner was already on the plates. Roasted chicken, buttery potatoes, sautéed greens. She went full comfort meal, the kind she used to make when things were good between them. The smell hit him hard, but not in the way it used to. Now it felt like one more trick, one more setup. Halfway through the meal, she leaned over and placed a folder on the table between them. He looked at it. The same folder, same label, but it didn't matter now. "I printed a clean copy," she said, smiling sweet. "Final version. Everything's ready." Mark nodded slowly. "All right. You don't have to read it again," she added, waving it off. "It's all the same. Jason made sure it's exactly what we discussed." Mark didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Actually, I had my lawyer take a look too." Her smile twitched. "Oh?" "Yeah," he said, "just to be careful. You know how these things can get messy." She tried to recover. "Sure, that's smart." He picked up her copy and flipped it open casually just to make it look like he was following along. He reached into his bag and pulled out his version. The flipped one. Same folder, same weight, almost identical. He placed it beside hers. "I made a few adjustments," he said. "Just minor clarifications, to protect us both." Chloe's eyes scanned the folder. She hesitated. "Want to look it over?" he asked, tone smooth. She licked her lips, glanced at the clock, and then said, "No, I trust you." She picked up a pen, but Mark held up a hand. "Actually," he said, "let's do this by the book. I'll sign first. You sign after. That way, everything's clean." She nodded slowly. He opened the folder, signed on the final page, then passed it to her. She stared at it for a second. The pen hovered. "Everything okay?" he asked. She smiled again. "Yeah, just soaking in the moment." She signed it. Mark stood up, walked to the counter, pulled out an envelope, slid the signed contract inside and sealed it. "I'll deliver it to the bank myself tomorrow morning," he said. "Want to come with me?" Chloe waved him off, laughing a little too hard. No, I trust you." Mark smiled. "Good." She left the house an hour later, said she was meeting a friend. He kissed her goodbye, watched her walk out the door, her heels clicking softly against the tile. He waited until she pulled out of the driveway, then grabbed his phone and called Olivia. She signed it. "Both versions?" "Yep. Her copy's still sitting on the table. I'm holding the real one. You need to take that straight to the bank. I'm going now." "Did she say anything?" "Nothing useful. She's being careful, but she's going to Jason now." "Perfect," Olivia said. "Let her tell him it's done. Let them both start celebrating. That's when we move." Mark drove downtown and handed the envelope over to his private banker. No email, no fax. In person, he explained that the contract should override all pending transactions tied to the account, including the ones that Chloe had tried to initiate earlier that week. The banker looked confused at first, then nervous. Then he nodded and said, "We'll make it happen." An hour later, the transfers were frozen. Chloe's access was locked. Jason's name triggered a flag in the system. He wasn't on record as a partner. He had no authority. Everything had flipped in one move. Mark walked out of the building feeling nothing. No joy, no victory. Just relief. Quiet relief. The kind that doesn't feel good. It just feels like you're finally breathing after holding your breath for days. When he got home, Chloe was already back, sitting on the couch with her legs tucked under her, wine glass in hand, pretending to scroll through her phone like she wasn't planning to vanish with his money. He looked at her for a moment from across the room. She glanced up, smiled, and said, "Everything go okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, All set. She raised her glass. To new beginnings, she said. Mark raised his bottle of water. To the truth. She didn't catch it, but she would. Soon. It all started the next morning, just after 8. Mark was sitting at the breakfast counter, nursing a cup of black coffee that had gone cold 15 minutes ago. He hadn't touched the toast on his plate. Chloe was upstairs getting ready, her heels clicking every few minutes as she moved between the bedroom and the bathroom. She was humming. Something upbeat. Something fake. Mark stared into his mug, waiting for the moment she'd walk down the stairs and tell him she had plans. And just like clockwork, she did. She came down wearing a tight gray dress with a high neckline and silver earrings she hadn't worn in months. Her hair was down, freshly blown out, and her makeup looked just a little more polished than usual for a regular morning. She smiled when she saw him. "I might be out for a while," she said, slipping her phone into her purse. "I have to meet with Jason and wrap up a few things. Probably grab lunch while we're at it." Mark didn't flinch. "Sounds good," he said. "You want me to call if anything comes up?" She waved him off and leaned in for a kiss. "Don't worry about me, I'll text you later." As she walked out, he glanced at the coat hook near the door. Her bag was hanging from her shoulder, and the tiny recording device Olivia had planted the day before was still stitched neatly inside the lining. Motion activated, set to record and send clips to a secure cloud folder Olivia had access to. They were ready this time. By 10:12 a.m., Chloe and Jason were sitting inside a booth at a quiet restaurant tucked between two empty storefronts on a street that barely had any foot traffic. The kind of place you pick when you don't want to be seen. Mark and Olivia sat in a black SUV across the street, with tinted windows and a laptop open between them. The signal from the recorder wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough to catch their voices through the background hum of soft music and clinking silverware. Jason was already talking when the feed kicked in. "I checked the account this morning, something's off. The transfer's still pending. It should have gone through by now." Chloe answered fast. "That doesn't make sense. I watched him drop off the signed contract yesterday. It's done." "It's not done," Jason snapped. His voice was sharper now, more impatient. "I think something's wrong. Either he changed it or he's stalling." Mark leaned in closer. Olivia's fingers hovered over the keyboard, adjusting the levels on the feed. "You think he knows?" Chloe asked. She didn't sound scared, just irritated. "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe the bank's flagging it for some reason." Chloe clicked her tongue. "Well, he hasn't said anything. He looked me in the eye last night and said it was all done." Jason wasn't convinced. "We need to get ahead of this. If something's wrong, we fix it now, before it gets worse." Mark smiled without even realizing it. This was exactly what he wanted. Let them squirm. Let them feel the floor moving under their feet. Chloe sighed into her wine glass. "Then let's go back to the house. I'll get into his laptop. I'll find whatever he sent. If he's hiding something, it's there." Jason leaned back. "You sure?" She gave a soft laugh. "Please. He leaves it open all the time, and he trusts me way too much." Mark tapped Olivia's arm. "He's going to get in his car and drive straight to the house. I need you to follow him." "What about you?" "I'm going home." He waited until Jason walked out of the restaurant, then slipped out the back of the SUV and drove around the long way to beat him home. He parked 3 houses down and walked through the back gate quietly. Chloe wasn't home yet. That gave him just enough time to move the trap forward. He went into his office and opened the fake version of the contract, the one Chloe had signed, the one Jason thought was real. Then he added one new file, a clean PDF with an email header as if it had been forwarded by a lawyer. The subject line read, "Urgent, mistaken signature block." The body of the fake email said, "Per our review, the version signed is incomplete. Please have both parties return to the bank with identification. Do not process until verified." He left it open on the screen and stepped away just as he heard the front door unlock. Chloe's voice echoed through the hallway. "Mark, you home?" "Yeah," he called back. "Just finishing up something." She walked in, calm as ever. Jason's car was still 2 minutes away. She needed a head start. "I left my sunglasses upstairs," she said. "I'll grab them and then head back out." Mark nodded. No rush. She walked up fast, heels hitting the wood stairs one after another. As soon as she was out of view, he stepped into the kitchen and quietly unlocked the side door, the one Jason would use when he arrived. Then he went back to the office, sat down and pulled out his phone. He didn't text Chloe. He texted Olivia. "She's trying to access the laptop now." Olivia replied instantly. "Got Jason tailing close. Want me to intervene?" "No. Let it play out." From the top of the stairs, he could hear the sound of drawers opening. Chloe wasn't looking for sunglasses. She was stalling, buying time for Jason to sneak in through the side door and check the laptop while she played dumb upstairs. 3 minutes later, he heard the door creak open, then footsteps. Slow, careful. Mark leaned back in his chair, acting like he was just working. Jason stepped in like a shadow, already looking over his shoulder. "Hey," Jason said, voice low and forced. "Didn't expect you to be here." Mark turned slowly. "Oh, hey. Chloe said you were stopping by. You guys still working on stuff?" Jason nodded, fake smile on his face. "Yeah, just clearing up a few loose ends." Mark stood up. "You need the laptop?" Jason hesitated. "If you don't mind." Mark stepped aside. "All yours." Jason moved quickly. He sat, scanned the desktop, clicked on the folder marked Signed Docs. He found the fake email immediately. His eyes darted across the screen. Mark watched him closely. The panic was obvious now. "What is this?" Jason asked. "Looks like the bank's holding the transfer. Something about a signature block." "That's not possible." "That's what it says." Jason stood up, ready to say something, but the sound of footsteps cut him off. Chloe entered the room holding her phone like she was just texting someone, pretending like she hadn't coordinated the whole thing from the moment she woke up. "Everything okay?" Jason turned to her, eyes wide. "He knows." Mark didn't move. She blinked. "What?" "He knows." Jason snapped. "He changed the contract." Mark smiled. "You figured it out faster than I thought." Chloe's mouth dropped open. I never signed your version," Mark said. "You signed mine." She looked at Jason, then back at Mark. "You're bluffing. Try me." Jason started to speak, but Olivia's voice came from behind them. "No one's bluffing. It's all recorded." They turned. Olivia stood in the hallway holding up her phone, live feed running. Every word, every step, captured. Mark turned to Chloe. "This was the setup, and you walked straight into it." It was around 9:30 in the morning when Chloe came into the kitchen in her soft cream robe, holding a mug of coffee like she didn't have a single thing to worry about. She kissed Mark on the cheek and gave him that lazy, innocent smile she always used when she was pretending nothing was going on. She looked rested, calm, and completely unaware that everything was already in motion. Mark was sitting at the counter with a plain folder in front of him, just one page visible, the new version of the contract. It was shorter now. Olivia had helped him boil it down to just what they needed. No fluff, no distractions. One page, 2 signatures. The rest had already been filed with the lawyer and the bank. All he needed now was Chloe's signature on this final release document. She sat down across from him and sipped her coffee. "So, is this it?" Mark looked up at her and nodded. "This is it." She reached for the folder, pulling it closer like it was no big deal. Like she hadn't spent weeks lying, scheming, playing him every single day. She read the top line, glanced at the signature block and smiled. "It's short." "Yeah," Mark said, folding his hands together. "No need to drag it out, you've waited long enough." She didn't even blink, didn't ask any questions. She picked up the pen sitting beside the folder and started to sign. Her handwriting was quick, clean, like she'd practiced it. "There," she said, sliding it back to him. "All done." Mark took it, slipped it into the envelope beside him, and sealed it in front of her. Then he stood up and walked over to the drawer by the fridge, opened it, and pulled out a small red notebook. She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Just something I've been keeping," he said, flipping it open. He turned to a page in the middle and set it down in front of her. Written inside were dates, conversations, places she said she was, days she wasn't where she claimed to be, names, Jason's name in bold black ink, a copy of a restaurant receipt, a photo printed and taped to the page of her sitting across from Jason at the beach house. Her face went pale. Mark watched her carefully. "I just wanted to make sure I had the facts straight before I made any final decisions." She stared at the page like it might disappear if she blinked enough times. Then she let out a breathy laugh like she still thought she could spin it. "I don't know what you think you found, but..." He held up his hand. "No more lies. You signed the release. Everything that used to belong to me is still mine. Everything you tried to move? Blocked. You're not getting $1. Chloe sat back slowly. Her expression changed. The fake sweetness started to drop, piece by piece. Her mouth pressed into a hard line. "So that's what this was? You tell me." She folded her arms. "You think you're smarter than me?" Mark didn't answer. He picked up the envelope and walked it to the front door, set it on the table, took out his phone and sent one message to Olivia. "Signed. Envelope ready. It's done." Chloe stood up now. robe shifting around her shoulders. You think this is over? Mark turned back to her. It is for me. She shook her head slowly, like she was trying to get control again, but she knew it was slipping too fast. I don't know what you think you're proving, Mark, but dragging this out just makes you look weak. You're humiliated. She stepped closer. And the second I leave, everyone's going to know it. You're right, he said calmly, but they're going to know why. She stared at him, trying to read his expression, trying to figure out if there was more coming. And there was. A knock came at the door. Chloe flinched. Mark opened it. A delivery man stood there holding a padded envelope and a clipboard. Package for Chloe Whitman? She stepped forward, confused, but took it. She opened it right there in the doorway. Inside was a printed transcript of the conversation she'd had with Jason, the one recorded in the car. The same conversation Olivia had uploaded to the cloud and had backed up 3 times. The transcript had her name at the top. Jason's too. A line-by-line breakdown. Mark watched her read the first few lines, her eyes widening, her hands trembling. Where did you get this? He didn't answer. She flipped the page. This is private. This is illegal. He tilted his head. Says the person who tried to steal millions. She threw the transcript onto the floor. You can't prove anything. I don't have to, Mark said. You already did it for me. Another knock. This one softer. Chloe turned, her face pale now. She was shaking. It was Olivia, dressed in black jeans and a denim jacket, hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She walked in without waiting to be invited. Chloe Whitman, what are you doing here? I'm here to let you know we've officially sent everything to your father's attorney. The transcripts, the bank documents, the footage, all of it. Chloe's mouth dropped open. You went to my father? Mark nodded. I thought it was only fair. Since most of the money you tried to steal came from his company shares. You son of a... Olivia stepped between them. You might want to think carefully before finishing that sentence. Because any threats will go straight into the file we've already opened with your name on it. Chloe's eyes filled with tears now. Real ones. Not for Mark, not for guilt, but for fear. You can't do this to me. You already did it to yourself. She turned to Mark, one last time, trying to find something in him, something soft, something to grab onto, but it was gone. Please, she said quietly, please don't let this be how it ends. Mark looked at her for a long second, then said, You ended it the moment you chose someone else? She didn't reply. She turned and walked out the front door, transcript still lying on the floor behind her. Mark sat down at the counter again, reached for his now cold coffee and finally took a sip. It was bitter, but at least it was real. The news didn't hit Chloe all at once. It came in waves, like one of those slow rising moments where you think you still have a chance, then suddenly, everything slips right out from under you. It started with her phone buzzing while she was still in the Uber, tears drying on her cheeks, face red, makeup smudged, shaking hands trying to open the notification. She had no idea how many people had seen it yet. The message was from her cousin, a screenshot of a post from one of those private business forums that wealthy families use to swap advice and gossip. The top of the post read, Whitman family drama, cautionary tale of trust and betrayal. Below that, her name was mentioned 3 times. Her full name, Chloe Whitman, then Jason's. A copy of the transcript, with big red highlights circling the most damning lines. She stared at it, breath caught in her throat. How the hell had it gotten out so fast? She opened her email. 10 unread messages from people she hadn't talked to in months. Most were short, 1 line. Some just said, seriously? Others didn't even say anything, just links to the post. The driver asked if she was okay. She waved him off and told him to keep driving, but there was nowhere to go. She couldn't go back to the house, couldn't go to her parents, couldn't go to Jason's. The only place she had was a hotel in the city that Jason had booked weeks earlier as part of their exit plan. And now, even that felt like a joke. By the time she made it to the hotel lobby, Jason was already there, standing near the elevators, pacing. He looked rattled for the first time. His shirt was half untucked. His eyes darted around like someone was watching. She walked up fast. Did you see it? He nodded. It's everywhere. I don't know how, but it's out. What do we do? Jason dragged a hand down his face. I've already had 2 clients cancel on me today. One of them wants to report me. I don't even know how they found out this fast. She looked at him, eyes wide. What about the accounts? Frozen, he said. All of them. Chloe felt like she'd been punched. What do you mean frozen? Mark filed a report. The banks shut everything down. No transfers, no withdrawals. It's all under review. Even your trust, even mine. She leaned against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor. Her robe was still under her coat. She hadn't even had time to change. Jason crouched next to her, talking fast now, panicking. We need to disappear for a while. Leave the city. Lay low. Chloe didn't answer. Chloe, listen to me. This isn't over. We can still fix it. Maybe not today, but... She cut him off. My father's lawyer was copied on the email. Jason blinked. What? He saw everything. The transcript. The fake contracts, the money trail. He's going to tell my dad, or maybe he already has. Jason stood up again, running both hands through his hair. He looked like he was about to explode. They're going to come after us, Chloe whispered. No. We didn't break the law. We pushed some things, but we didn't. She looked up at him like he was stupid. Yes, we did. We committed fraud, Jason. You impersonated a legal advisor. I forged documents. We tried to steal millions from a man we were both lying to. What part of that do you think is legal? Jason paced harder. He pulled out his phone and started dialing. Who are you calling? A friend. Someone who can help. Don't. Please. We need to think. Jason ignored her. The call went to voicemail. He tried another number. Same thing. Chloe stood slowly. Everything around her felt like it was melting. She checked her phone again. New message from her father. I'm ashamed. Don't come near the house. She froze. Jason came up behind her. What is it? She didn't answer. He snatched the phone from her hand and read the screen. He stared for a few seconds, then handed it back. So that's it? She said quietly. Everyone knows. Jason didn't respond. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and stood still. Where are you going? She didn't turn around. Just said, I need to be alone. The doors opened and she stepped inside. Jason didn't follow. Mark, on the other hand, wasn't celebrating. He wasn't drinking champagne, he wasn't smiling. He was sitting in his office watching the fallout happen in real time on his phone. Olivia had sent him updates all morning. The post was already being reshared in multiple places. Some discreet, others not. Someone had leaked it to a financial podcast. The story was spreading. Even if his name was left out of most of it, he didn't feel proud. He felt hollow. Marta knocked on the door and peeked in. She'd been walking on eggshells since everything came out. You good? He looked up and gave a tight nod. Yeah, just watching it fall apart. She walked in and sat across from him. You know you did the right thing, right? He looked at her for a second, then back at his phone. Doesn't make it feel good, it's not supposed to. She reached into her apron and pulled out a small wrapped sandwich. Eat. You look like you're running on fumes. He took it without a word and unwrapped the foil. He wasn't hungry, but he took a bite anyway. After a minute, she said, She's not going to land on her feet this time. You know that, right? I know. Marta stood up and walked to the door. You don't have to fix everything, Mark. He nodded. But I do need to close it out. She left. He stared at the screen again. A new message popped up. Olivia. Jason's lawyer called. He's trying to make a deal. Looks like he's turning on Chloe. Mark didn't even blink. Of course he is. Chloe woke up on a hotel couch with a dry throat, and her phone still clutched in her hand. The TV was on but muted, and the curtains were half open, letting in that weird gray light that made everything look tired. She blinked a few times, sat up slowly, and looked around. Jason wasn't there. His jacket was still hanging on the back of the chair, but his phone charger was gone. So was the folder he'd been carrying around for days. Her stomach dropped. She unlocked her phone, hoping maybe he had texted. Nothing. Just more notifications. Dozens of them. Twitter alerts, news pings, a few messages from random numbers she didn't recognize. She opened one. It was a screenshot. The same headline over and over now. Billionaire's wife and fake advisor exposed in explosive financial betrayal. Her face was on it. Jason's too. She tossed the phone across the couch and covered her face with both hands. For a second she thought she might scream, but all that came out was one of those half sobs you make when you don't even have the energy to cry anymore. An hour later, she finally dragged herself into the bathroom. Her mascara from yesterday was smudged under her eyes. Her lips were dry and cracked. She splashed cold water on her face, stared at herself in the mirror, and whispered, "What the hell did I do?" Downstairs, someone had left a printed newspaper on the front desk. A guest had circled a section with a black pen. One of the employees had stuck a post-it note to the top. "Your friends made the news." She didn't go down to see it. She already knew what it said. Mark had stayed quiet. He didn't give any interviews, didn't release a statement, didn't even talk to the media, but that didn't matter. The facts spoke loud enough. People didn't need to hear it from him to believe it. Olivia had made sure everything that needed to be seen got out. Nothing was twisted, no drama added, just the facts. Cold, brutal, undeniable. There was a PDF link floating around online with a time-stamped breakdown of Chloe and Jason's calls, the voice transcripts, the contracts, and the money trail. Every screenshot had a matching file ID. Every document had a matching witness. Every word lined up with the truth. In less than 24 hours, Chloe went from being the wife of a powerful businessman to the face of a public scandal. A few influencers reposted the story with snide captions. A gossip account with 1 million followers called it the cleanest takedown of the year, and by lunch her name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, Jason's lawyer was already trying to spin. He called Olivia first, then sent an email to Mark's office asking for a private meeting. Said Jason was willing to talk, whatever that meant. Olivia replied with a single line, "Send it to our attorney." Jason didn't show his face on social media, not a word, but his accounts went dark one by one. First his public email, then his business page, then his LinkedIn, gone, like he was trying to disappear. But it was too late. Chloe's father found out from his assistant. He wasn't a man who yelled. He didn't throw things or storm out. But when his lawyer called to confirm the documents were real, he gave one instruction: cut her out of the trust, effective immediately. And that was it. The rest came like falling dominoes. The board of his company voted to remove Chloe's name from any remaining partnerships. The financial group that used to sponsor her events dropped her by email. Her social charity page lost all its backers by the end of the week. And one of the brand deals she had quietly lined up for a skincare collab pulled out before they even launched the product. Chloe tried to text Mark once. It didn't go through. She tried again the next day from a different number. Just one word: please. He didn't answer. Mark sat in his office, not saying much. Olivia was on the other side of the desk, sipping from a takeaway coffee and scrolling through her tablet. She had that calm, tired look in her eyes, like someone who'd seen too much but still had one last job to finish. "It's all over the feeds now," she said. "It's not going anywhere for a while." Mark nodded. His face was hard to read. He wasn't proud. He wasn't angry. Just still. "You sure you don't want to say anything?" she asked. "Even just a press note to protect yourself?" "I don't care what people say," he replied. "Let them guess." Olivia gave him a look. "They're not guessing. They're cheering." He gave a small shrug. "Then let them." She set her coffee down and stood up. "You're allowed to feel something, you know." Mark looked up at her. "I do. I just don't trust it yet." She didn't push. She grabbed her jacket, headed toward the door, then paused. "She's not going to stop, Mark, even now. People like her. They don't go quiet. They come back louder." He nodded once. "I'll be ready." After she left, Mark sat in silence for a long time. Then he pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk and took out a picture frame he'd flipped upside down weeks ago. It was a photo of him and Chloe on the beach, smiling, carefree, a day that felt like it had belonged to someone else. He stared at it for a minute. Then, without a word, he dropped it face down in the trash. The first consequence wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't come in the form of police sirens or reporters camped outside the house. It came in silence. Chloe checked her bank app that morning and stared at the screen like it had betrayed her. All 4 accounts were frozen. Not one pending transaction. Not one backup card that worked. She tried logging into the shared account she'd opened with Jason, and it was gone. Not empty. Gone. As if it had never existed. The screen read, "Account unavailable, contact support." She called the bank, waited 30 minutes on hold, and when someone finally answered, all they said was, "We can't speak to you about this file anymore, Ms. Whitman. Everything has been escalated." She hung up without saying anything. Her hands were shaking so bad she dropped the phone twice. She called Jason. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. When she texted, it turned green. That meant one of 2 things. He blocked her, or his number was shut off. She opened her email next. 10 messages from brands she'd worked with over the last year. Every single one was a termination letter. Some were short and professional. Others were cold and blunt. "Due to the recent media exposure, we are forced to dissolve this partnership effective immediately." Her stomach dropped every time she saw those words. Then came the real punch. A notice from her father's legal team. Official letterhead. Her name bold at the top. No warmth, no sympathy, just the final word. In accordance with the revised trust terms, your name has been removed. You are no longer a beneficiary. That was it. The one thing she never thought would happen. Her dad had always been strict, but he had never shut her out completely. Not even when she dropped out of grad school. Not even when she first started dating Jason and ignored every warning. She had crossed a line this time, and even he wasn't going to fix it for her. Meanwhile, Jason was falling apart too, just in a different way. He had tried to run. That was his first move. Get ahead of it. Go dark. Lay low in Miami or Vegas or maybe somewhere overseas until things blew over. But Olivia had already flagged his passport. She didn't work for the government or anything official, but she had enough contacts to make sure that the second Jason tried to board a plane, someone would be watching, and he knew it. So instead, he called a lawyer, one of those loud ones who shows up on reality shows and talks too fast. But even that guy couldn't help him. There were too many recordings, too many emails, and Jason's dumb mistake? He kept every fake document in a private folder on his laptop labeled plans. The moment Olivia sent that folder to the FBI's fraud division, it was over. The lawyer told him flat out, the best you can do is talk. Give them Chloe, give them everything. Maybe you get a deal. Maybe you walk away with a fine and no jail time. But if you keep quiet, you're going down for all of it. Jason didn't want to turn on Chloe, at first. But within 24 hours, he was in a meeting room with a legal pad and a microphone, telling a government agent everything. He didn't hold back. He gave dates, locations, names, how long they'd been planning it, what Chloe said, what she did, what she signed. And by the time he finished, the agent across the table had 5 pages of notes and a file thick enough to sink them both. Jason's deal was still up in the air. He'd probably lose everything, but he might stay out of prison. That was his goal now. Not wealth, not freedom, just survival. Back in the hotel room, Chloe sat by the window with her phone turned off and a cold cup of tea in her hand. She hadn't left in 2 days. Room service had stopped showing up. She kept telling herself she'd figure it out, that she'd bounce back. But every call she made got sent to voicemail. Every friend she thought she had either blocked her or just flat out ignored her. Her cousin posted on Instagram, "Let this be a lesson. Snakes always shed their skin eventually." She didn't say Chloe's name, but everybody knew. Meanwhile, Mark kept things quiet on his side. He didn't go on any interviews. He didn't write a tell-all. He didn't post anything. He went to work, kept his head down, and let the legal team handle the rest. He had a stack of emails from people asking for statements, partnerships, even book deals. He ignored them all. He wasn't interested in fame. He just wanted peace. But peace didn't come easy. Even after Chloe was exposed, even after Jason started talking, there were still moments that hit him out of nowhere, like when he saw her old scarf hanging on the back of the guest room door, or when he found a half-used bottle of her shampoo in the upstairs shower. Little things, ordinary things, but they hit hard, because for a while she had been his whole world. And now she was a stranger who almost destroyed his life. Marta kept checking in. She brought him lunch sometimes, cleaned the house even when he said he didn't care. She didn't talk much about what happened, but one day she sat across from him at the kitchen table, holding a mug of coffee, and said, "She's going to try something." Mark looked at her. Like what? Like, come back, in some way. Not for love, not for you, for pity, for a second chance, for someone to tell her she's still worth something. Mark stared at his coffee. "And what do I do when she does?" Marta didn't blink. "You close the door." He nodded, but part of him wasn't sure he'd be ready. Not because he missed her, but because after everything, he still didn't understand how someone could lie that deeply with a smile on their face. He didn't need her apology. He just wanted the silence to mean something. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet was the heaviest part. Chloe vanished from every social channel and every mutual friend's circle. Jason kept his head down, legal cameras following his every move. Meanwhile, Mark kept his routine. Work, meals, sleep, repeat. But underneath, something started to shift. At first, it felt like nothing, just a faint crack of normality. Then, one morning, he spotted Marta in the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee and the kindest smile. "I brought your usual," she said softly. "Needed to check on you." Mark looked up from his papers and managed a small nod. "Thank you." She looked at him like someone who genuinely cared, and for the first time since everything fell apart, he didn't feel numb. He felt seen. The little check-ins from Marta became a lifeline. A text from her, "Need help with dinner? Be there in 5. Or sometimes, "Sun's out, coffee on the patio." He didn't always need the company, but knowing someone wasn't waiting for him to ask was enough. He started walking again. Not because he wanted to, but because his body felt stiff. He walked down the same street where Chloe and he used to walk, where she used to laugh about something silly. On some days, he'd stop at the cafe they used to go to. The barista would give him his regular double espresso, no questions asked. He noticed how the sunlight caught the steam in his cup, warm and soft. On good days, he touched his palm to the cup and whispered, "I'm still here." One afternoon, Olivia invited him out. Just lunch, no business. Just two friends talking about nothing important. They ate sandwiches in a park under a tree that was already turning gold. She told him about a case she was helping with, and he told her about a book he started reading but couldn't finish. It wasn't big. It wasn't earth-shattering. It was ordinary, and it felt good like rain after a long drought. Mark started writing again too. He didn't post. He didn't share. He just wrote. Letters to no one. Fragments of memories. A paragraph about how the roses in the garden were blooming even though he hadn't touched them. A line about rain tapping the window at night and how it used to lull him to sleep when Chloe was home. He didn't try to make sense of anything. He just let the words land. Then one day Emily texted him, "I opened a cafe. Quiet. Small. Would love if you came by." That was all it said. No pressure, no expectations. He found himself there the next day. The cafe was warm, bright, and smelled like baked bread. Marta was behind the counter, surprised but delighted. They laughed at how small the world had become. Emily brought him a slice of banana bread. He took a bite, closed his eyes, and felt something shift inside. Not finally healed, not back to before, but like he was on his feet again. Weeks passed. Some days would hit with memories like a wave. He'd walk past the guest room and catch himself staring. But instead of fear or grief, it felt like he was looking at someone else's story. His story had changed. He was changing. One evening, Olivia called and said, "Let's go somewhere that isn't tied to any of this." He agreed without hesitation. They drove to a spot halfway up a hill, past rows of lights where the city stretched low below them. It was quiet, except for distant traffic and the steady blink of street lamps. Mark breathed in deeply. Olivia handed him a cup of hot chocolate. Too sweet but comforting. "You look good," she said. "Not like you're healed, like you're healing." He nodded. "Thank you," he said. When he got home later, he passed by the garden and saw the roses glowing silver in the streetlight. He reached out and touched a petal. Delicate, strong, broken and still blooming. He whispered, "Me too." Healing didn't feel like a war. It felt like a slow sunrise. Not sweeping away the night, just letting the day step in a little at a time. Mark hadn't seen or heard from Chloe in weeks. The house felt like a museum now, each room quiet, orderly, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort you. He'd settled into the new rhythm. Work, early walks, quiet dinners, writing letters that no one would read. Most of the time, the past felt distant, but he never expected it to step back through the door. It started with a knock. Just one. Sharp. At 7:30 on a weekday evening when he was in his study poring over market numbers. Marta was in the kitchen, humming quietly as she cleaned up. He didn't think much of it until she came to the door and stood there, freezing. Her face, usually so steady, looked torn. Mark walked over. "Who is it?" Marta's voice was low. "Ms. Whitman." His heart skipped. "She hasn't been here. She can't be here." At the door stood Chloe, not dressed up, just in faded jeans and a plain white shirt. Her hair was down straighter than he'd ever seen it, and her eyes, they were the same as always, only now they looked small, exhausted, raw. She didn't smile. She just stared at him like she wasn't sure what she was doing there. He felt every second stretch out between them, thick and dangerous. Chloe sighed, soft. "Can we talk?" He didn't say yes or no. He just stepped back and let the door close behind her. Marta watched from the hallway, eyes steady, but clearly worried. She didn't speak. She just slipped back into the kitchen and closed the door behind her. The house felt too still then. Chloe walked into the living room. Every step was careful. She looked around like she didn't recognize the place. Mark closed the study door behind him and joined her. "You're here." She looked small in the middle of this room. "I didn't expect you." "I know." She rubbed her arms like she was cold. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to say something." He sat down on the edge of the couch. She remained standing. "I'm listening." She took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. I've thought about this every day. I wanted to say it earlier, but I wasn't sure you'd ever want to hear it. Mark didn't move, just waited. I lost everything. Dad disowned me. Friends disappeared. Jason, well, he's gone now too. They arrested him. He's facing serious time. And the guilt, that guilt never leaves. Her eyes filled. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know that it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a game. It was real, and I'm broken. Mark stared at her. He felt his chest tighten the way it had when he watched her leave the house that day. Only this time, he didn't feel anger. He felt wary, because he knew how good she was at words. She'd been rehearsing them, but somewhere behind those words was something he needed to understand. He said nothing, let her say what she came to say. Finally, she exhaled, then turned to leave. I just wanted you to hear it. She opened the door, then closed it behind her. The click echoed. Now he was alone again. The house seemed hollow. But something about that knock, that one visit, changed the air. It wasn't danger. It wasn't fear. It felt like the lid of a jar being lifted, uncertain but opening. Inside his chest, something that had been frozen started to thaw. He got up and walked slowly into the hallway. The door was still shut. Through the wood, he could almost hear the echo of her words. Broken, honest. He didn't want her back, but he didn't feel contempt anymore, just curiosity. Maybe one day she'd understand what she broke, or what could still be saved. He walked back to his study, sat at his desk and picked up his pen. There was a new letter to write. Not for her, just for himself, because some wounds don't heal by themselves. Some only start to heal when the person who caused them stops hiding behind silence. And now she wasn't hiding anymore. Life shifted the day Emily's cafe opened. He didn't know how long he'd been stuck, sitting in that house that once held so much laughter, drinking coffee that tasted like regret. Then one morning, as he was opening the blinds, his phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. She's ready. She meant Emily, and he wasn't sure whether he felt nervous or hopeful. Emily's cafe was tucked into a quiet part of town, a small place with warm lights and floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the morning sun just right. When Mark walked in, he felt something in his chest loosen. Marta waved from behind the counter, and he took a seat at a reclaimed wood table by the window. The smell was fresh: toast, brewed coffee, and something simple and good. Emily came out from the back, apron still warm, and gave him a small, real smile. "Hey, thanks for coming. I've got something I think you'll like." She brought over a slice of banana bread that looked homemade, and a cappuccino with art in the foam, something you didn't find in corporate cafes. He took a bite, closed his eyes, and let it land. It tasted like days when nothing felt broken. They talked quietly. She didn't bring up the past. She didn't ask for anything, just asked me how I was. He said he was okay, some days better than others. He asked how the cafe was going. It felt nice to talk without pretending. She said it was slow but steady. People liked the vibe. He said he'd come back again just on principle. From there, his days got smaller but stronger. He'd stop by the cafe once or twice a week, coloring inside the lines of his new routine. Morning coffee, a walk, work in the afternoon. He didn't ignore the guest room upstairs. He cleaned it one Sunday morning, folded a blanket, opened the blinds and let the light in. It didn't feel like giving up. It felt like moving forward. Olivia and he went on walks again. No work talk, no talking around things, just walking and watching the sky change. One night when they met under a tree by the lake, she handed him a paperback she'd found. Something light, no characters he cared about. She said she wanted to hear him laugh when something stupid happened in it. And he did. He actually laughed. At work, he started helping out more honestly. No secret deals, no juggling money. He looked at the accounts differently now. He cleared out old credits and added clear notes so whoever came after him wouldn't get messed up like he did. He fixed mistakes. Sometimes he'd think about Chloe, not with anger, not with longing either, just with quiet disbelief. How someone who once felt like love could turn everything upside down. But then he'd think about Emily's cafe or Olivia's laugh or the way morning light fills a corner, and he'd feel softer, like his heart might reach someone again, but this time carefully. One day Marta texted him, "New pie flavor, you should taste." He showed up 15 minutes later. Rosie's, blueberry with lemon zest. She had baked an extra slice just in case. It felt like someone made something for him that needed no explanation. He sat there with his hands around a mug and let that sit. He didn't make big plans. He didn't go on trips or post pictures of sunsets. He just lived. He paid attention. He let the day come in step by step. One afternoon, he found the framed wedding photo tucked behind a book in the living room. He stared at it. Chloe's dress, his smile, the sky blue background. He took it into the back shed and brought fresh soil to the garden. He planted a rosemary bush in its place, something that grows back even after being trimmed hard. Maybe someday it would smell strong in the breeze, and maybe that was the point. He wrote a letter, not to Chloe, but to himself. It said, "I survived. I'm building something small and quiet. I might be okay." He sealed it and shoved it in a desk drawer. He didn't read it again. Months later, he and Emily sat in that cafe, waiting for a regular customer who'd never shown up. They swapped stories. About the roses, about books they didn't finish, about finding peace in small corners. He realized that new lives were built not on forgetting, but on deciding what to carry forward. That day, the door opened and someone else walked in. A stranger. Emily stood, smiled, and said, "Winner's coffee?" He sat back. He watched her, and he finally felt that the story wasn't just over. It was becoming something new. "You're right here with me, and I'm going to walk you through section 20, the final twist, as if you're watching it all happen right now. No breaks, no fancy language, just the real moment when everything shifts again, in a way neither Mark nor you will expect." Mark had come into the cafe that Friday morning the way he always did now. A quick nod at Marta, a seat by the window, his usual, black coffee, light on sugar. The shop was humming gently, a playlist with low piano in the background, early customers quietly settling in. He had his notebook open, pen resting on a clean page. Emily brought him the coffee and a small wrapped package. "A little something from me," she said softly, placing it in front of him, celebrating a quiet Friday. He arched an eyebrow. "Me? For what?" "For surviving," she said, left him with a smile and stepped back into the background. He unwrapped it. Inside was a small framed print, an excerpt from that transcript, typed neatly in clean font. The part where Chloe said, "Once he signs it, it's done. All of it transfers. He won't know what hit him. We'll be out before he even realizes what happened." It was framed in simple wood. Underneath, she'd handwritten one word, "Remember." He stared at it, a slow knot forming in his chest. Less pain now, more resolve, but still that quiet ache. He touched the glass, then let it be. Then Emily leaned in and said, "There's someone here who wants to see you." He brought something. Before he could ask, someone tapped lightly on his shoulder. He looked up. Standing there was Jason, not the confident man who had once walked into that house with Calvin Klein, telling Chloe everything she wanted to hear. Not the man he'd imagined hiding or fleeing, crushed by his own choices. This Jason looked different. He was slouched, a couple shades paler, dressed in a plain t-shirt and jeans. His eyes had shadows under them. They looked tired, a bit desperate. He held something in his hands behind his back. Mark didn't know whether to stand or stay seated. The cafe around them froze. Customers hushed. Staff paused. Emily watching from behind the counter. Jason cleared his throat. "I'm hoping this isn't too much. I heard you might want to close this chapter clean." He stepped forward and placed a slim envelope on the table. "I'm listening," Mark said quietly. Inside the envelope were 3 things. 1, a check, for every penny Chloe had taken or tried to move. Exact amount, dated and signed, not hidden in layers, just straight in the open. Payable to Mark Whitman. 2, a letter addressed to Mark, not long, handwritten. It said, "I don't expect forgiveness. I expected jail. I never planned on fixing it, but every day since I realized you changed everything for me, I've regretted how easy I made it for her to lie. I don't want your pity. I want you to know I tried, late as it was. If you want this back, cash it and forget I exist. Otherwise, maybe you deserve this piece. J. 3. A small USB drive labeled simply, "My Side." Mark looked at him, speechless. Jason swallowed. He looked worn, smaller somehow, a ghost of the man he had been. "People don't know the half of it, Mark. But that letter, that check, and what's on that drive, it's everything I have left." Mark held the envelope. The check felt heavy, real, honest. He exhaled slowly. "Do you want me to open that here?" he asked, nodding at the USB. Jason nodded. "You can." Mark inserted it into his laptop. The screen flickered. A folder appeared with one file, Video Confession Final.mp4. He clicked it. On the screen was video. Chloe, mid-argument with Jason in some poorly lit room. Her voice was angry, frantic. I can't go through with it if he doesn't sign. I need to know he's gone for good, she said. You have to get rid of him. Jason looked stunned on the recording. You want me to do what? He asked. We can still walk away. Just leave. Don't do anything stupid. Her face went red. I'm not walking away empty-handed, you know that. But if he doesn't sign, I'll lose everything. You need to make sure he doesn't stop me. The audio was clear enough everyone in the cafe could hear. Mark watched it all. Chloe's face distorted by greed and fear. The threat. The coldness. Then it froze. He took a breath. He looked back up at Jason. Everything? Jason nodded. Voice shaky. Everything. The cafe stood silent. A few eyes behind cups watching. What are you doing now? Mark asked. Jason wiped his face. I'm going to turn myself in. I'll help them investigate. I want to pay for what I did. Help fix what she broke, even if it's just with truth. Mark looked down at the check. He thought of the roses, the cafe, the quiet mornings. He exhaled again. You could disappear, you know, Mark said finally. Jason met his eyes. I don't deserve to anymore. Mark nodded. He picked up the check, slid it into his jacket pocket. The USB stayed on the table, still plugged in. Marta moved behind the counter slowly, turned the music back up. Emily cleared her throat softly. I'll make you both coffee. On the house. Mark looked at her, then at Jason, who was staying seated, head bowed. He nodded. 2 coffees, please. As Emily moved, the cafe exhaled too. Whatever final twist this was, it wasn't the end. It was another turn. A reminder that sometimes the unexpected comes quietly, not to destroy, but to test whether you've finally breathed free enough to forgive yourself first, and maybe even someone else. There wasn't a victory cheer, just the quiet click of a cup against saucer, a small sunbeam hitting Mark's table, and the promise that endings don't belong to one person anymore. They go to the ones who stayed. That's where we leave it.